I think that the issue is not so much why the Nigerian government has been helpless, but that the Nigerian government is at last being forced to confront its deficiencies. And that confrontation is because these girls were kidnapped on the 14th of April in the middle of the night from their school. And the news came out, and then it seemed as though nothing was being done. And I remember reading at the time some commentators saying that they are surprised that there's no outrage in Nigeria, that we just seem to have absorbed, we, the ordinary Nigerian people, seem to have absorbed the news and just moved on. Same thing with the Nyanya bombings. And then some Nigerian women decided to take up the challenge to say, well, we're not going to move on. And that's how you found women coming together, joined by the men, of course, but led by women on a non-partisan, non-religious, non-sectarian, non-regional basis, just coming together to say this is not acceptable. And so they started protesting, and the hashtag of Bring Back Our Girls was attached to it. I think it's important to stress that, because there's this presentation as though now that the United States First Lady had been, taken up the hashtag, and Hillary Clinton and others, that it's a foreign campaign and that it's being driven by foreigners. It's not. It's a Nigerian campaign, and it's being driven by Nigerians in cities from north to west to east to south, all over the country. The problem that we have in Nigeria always is that our government only responds when it begins to look foolish or incompetent in the eyes of the international community. If the government had responded to the immediate cry, the immediate complaint, these girls have been kidnapped, some of them have escaped, please, what is going to happen? One would have expected that immediately where those girls escaped from, they would be traced and that there would be hot pursuit. But there wasn't. There wasn't. And instead, we've had what has been really a very unedifying blame game. There's no doubt that many people believe that the federal government's response to the insurgency in the north has been grossly distorted by its perception or knowledge about the insurgency or the struggle by Niger Delta militants in the south. It's important for the government to have understood, and one would have hoped that it would have been understood by now, that it is a different ballgame altogether. And that needs to be recognized by the government. So there's no this idea of saying, well, because some people didn't like losing the last election in 2011, or this or that, or trying to smear people who they perceive as possible rivals to any potential bid for the presidency by the incumbent president. All this whole idea of trying to make political capital out of it is not good enough. I have to say, however, that the opposition too needs to understand and catch the mood of the nation. When I heard the Borno State governor had gone overseas to London to raise awareness, I didn't feel good about it, because I asked myself, excuse me, when did he know that awareness need to be raised? And whose awareness, by the way? Did he not realize that Nigerians have been calling for action on this? We want the people who have responsibility for our security to take responsibility. The issue of blame can come later. But the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and he also has operational control of the Nigeria Police Force under the Police Act and, in fact, under the Constitution. So definitely the security buck stops on his table. Of course, there are political implications, and I think that we would be foolish if we don't understand that those countries, particularly the United States and Israel, are like a red rag to certain bulls. It internationalizes a conflict in a way that we've seen happen, for example, in Syria, where you have all sorts of people coming in the guise of defending their alleged co-religionists. Fortunately, in this case, we've heard that even Al Qaeda has condemned the abduction of these girls. We've also heard the OIC, Organization for Islamic, has also condemned it. We've heard religious authorities, not just in Nigeria, but also in countries like Saudi Arabia, where a lot of this fundamentalist nonsense has come from. But even in Saudi Arabia, they have also condemned this action. So we hope that bringing in foreign countries will continue to will still leave our own insurgents isolated. But we have to recognize that it is a danger. I don't subscribe to the view expressed by the Niger State governor that they should be given 3 months to complete and go. Because I think we also need to recognize that it's not a matter of sending platoons of troops to Nigeria. It's a matter of sending people who have some specialist knowledge and who have tactics that they can use, and that they can also help to train to the extent that our troops need training rather than our troops need empowering, that they can help in that. But I think it's also extremely important for us to remember the National Security Advisor had said that we cannot simply use the stick on the Boko Haram issue. We have to use the carrot or the soft approach. We have to understand the roots of the insurgency, why it has been able to take hold, what deficiencies there are in the Nigerian state that has allowed this to happen. Well, I think it's important to remember that negotiation is not the same thing as capitulation. This morning, again, I heard the mother of a British citizen who was kidnapped by Boko Haram, and again, in respect of whom British forces mounted a rescue bid, which ended up with the slaughter, the murder of the kidnapped hostage. And then those who had committed the murder were arrested, and they've been tried, and they're convicted there in a Nigerian jail. And she was saying that she's very sure that her son would say that even though these are his murderers, if it would bring back these girls, the Nigerian government, he would not object to their being released. So I think that we should understand that there are lives at stake. Now, there is always going to be a problem when you capitulate or when you give in to the demands of kidnappers, because it encourages them, and there doesn't seem to be any penalty for them. At any time they like, they can just go and collect anybody they like. I mean, the menace of kidnapping has not even been eradicated for the criminal aspect of it, not to talk of the this ideological aspect. However, I think that when you negotiate because a hole was discovered in your defenses, then you also need to be attending to that hole, to that chink in your defenses, in addition to doing what is necessary to get these girls back. So to me, the government should not say that we will not negotiate and therefore that's the end of the story. The government needs to understand that there's a form of negotiation that will also, because Boko Haram now is also cornered. They also ought to be feeling cornered. They've got these girls. The noise is not dying down as they expected, and they too may be looking for a way out of the corner that they've painted themselves into. So the government needs to find a way of negotiating. I'm not a negotiator. I'm not a hostage or a mediator of any kind. But I know that those who have expertise in these matters know how to do it in such a way that there will be no capitulation. But even if it's just the Mexican standoff where everybody backs off, let the hostages go, and then we can resume hostilities or means of trying to settle or deal with the insurgency. Those things are all possible as far as I'm concerned. Well, I think that the effect of the rallies and protests, which, as I said, have happened all over Nigeria. In fact, it's been a wonderful display of national unity by Nigerians to say this is just not good enough. And I think that actually that is what is needed. As long as Nigerians keep on demanding more from their government will have no choice but to deliver. If I'm honest, I would be in two minds. I mean, we hear that some of the girls have been forced to convert to Islam. And the example from Sudan, by the way, of the pregnant woman who was brought up as a Christian and suddenly is told that, by the way, you're an apostate because you converted, mind you, to Christianity. And by the way, you're an adulterer because you married a Christian, and you are A, going to be sentenced to lashes, and B, going to be hanged for it. So all of those things would make one say that this business of being forced to convert to Islam, we need to have a clear path out for those. But at the same time, I would say at the end of the day, I want my child alive. So if it meant even, I want to see my child, and I would even be ready to go there and say, I don't think if it's Islam that will keep you alive, I would accept it. But I only have one child. But I recognize that for some people, no, it is better to cling to one's faith and to die. And to me, I don't think any forced conversion has any validity in the face of any God whatsoever. So I would not mind in that sense. But I do recognize that for some parents, it is totally unacceptable. But for most people, I think that even if they know that somewhere their child is safe, whatever it is, so long as we can have the opportunity of bringing that child back. Well, I think it's important that we also don't close without... I think it's important that we have to recognize that these girls and both the young boys who had gone to the school to take their exam at a time when it was known that it was going to be dangerous to take those exams. We need to understand that this type of thing is having a dreadful effect on education, particularly in the insurgency hit areas. And it's important that the government, and this is, when I say government, because it's actually state governments that have primary responsibility for primary education and secondary education. It's important that they understand that this is a challenge that they have to meet. We have 10 million children out of school in Nigeria. It's the largest number in the whole world, and it's not good enough. And that responsibility for the children who are out of school rests primarily with the state governments. And it's not a new story. We purport to have had primary education, free primary education in Nigeria since 1976. I was in university then, and I remember feeling proud that Nigeria was taking steps to tackle this menace. Now I've left university, I've grown up, I've had a child, my own child has left university, and we're still boasting the kind of out-of-school figures, rates of illiteracy that are a disgrace. We need to understand that if this is not tackled, the door is open for Boko Haram, the door is open for foreign intervention, the door is open for a John McCain to wake up and talk about our president in this disrespectful way he did. We open the door, and we need to close that door by making sure that every Nigerian child who is entitled to education gets an education.